It is, at least my time says, 10 o'clock. I'll bring this meeting to order. And this is a Workforce Housing Committee meeting, January 3rd, 2024. If we could start off with roll call, please.
Okay. This guy. All right. So, Chair Fan is absent. John Rocha,
Here.
Nicole Kennedy,
Here.
Randy Goodman, Arnold Urias, absent. Sorry, I saw the empty seat. Brain just didn't register it. Anthony Teeters,
Here.
and then Luther Kraxberger.
Here.
All right.
There he is.
Now we'll move on. Yep, he's item
It's on
C.
the agenda. Yep. So for now, Luther, you're a mystery man.
Love it. We'll keep it that way.
For the first two.
Yeah.
All righty. So we'll head on to discussion and action items. And we'll go to A, approval of November 30th, 2023 Workforce Housing Committee meeting minutes. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll motion.
Second.
All right. Tony, second. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay. So minutes are approved. Item B, the approval of December 6, 2023 Workforce Housing meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve those?
I'll motion.
Okay. Second? I mean, you could vote. No? All right.
Second.
Oh, you weren't here. I wasn't here either, sorry.
I wasn't
All right.
here either.
All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So the meeting minutes for December 6th are approved. And then I will, let me see, item C, introduction of new Workforce Housing Committee member, Luther Kraxberger. Hi, Luther. If you don't mind, would you, a little brief introduction of yourself here to the committee? Be great.
Sure. I moved to Prescott 18 years ago to go to Embry-Riddle, graduated Embry-Riddle, and decided to stay. So stayed here, got into real estate in 2010, and kept selling, and then switched over, started building and developing, and that brings us to today. I have a wife and 3 kids, and they've all born here, grown up here, and look forward to making everything work.
Awesome.
Thanks.
We're glad to have you, man.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. All right, item D, presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the general plan housing element.
Okay, so I'm going to actually hand it over to Tammy for an introduction on this one. Maybe?
Hi, thank you. Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner, the City of Prescott. And I'm the lead per staff member on the general plan update. As part of the general plan, the general plan, it's a planning document. It's not law. It doesn't change zoning. It doesn't change anything. Basically, it's a guide. So what we're hoping to get out of this that's been different with the other general plans, first we're reformatting it, where instead of having a standard document, housing element, land use, circulation, we've created different themes. So housing is going to actually, we're anticipating going under economic competitiveness and prosperity. You got to have housing to be competitive and prosper in a city and to be sustainable too. So that goes with economic development, growth management, and cost development, and the airport, because the airport's an economic driver in the city of Prescott. So what we're hoping to get is the 30,000-foot view of the housing concerns that we have in the city of Prescott, which have not changed over the last 10 years that we've seen, because a lot of the information you had in the element was from the last general plan. And it's, as we see throughout the state and the country right now, it's a huge issue that's coming forward. So what we're hoping to do is we are going to have an implementation section, which we've never had as part of a general plan. So this is where all the goals and implementation is going to be really documented and managed. So we need to think of the short-term goals, the low-hanging fruit you can think of, the midterm goals over like the next 5 years, and then long-term or continuous goals, and then ideas of how to implement it. Then, every year when we do, the city council gets together to do their their plan for the following year, we kind of remind them, hey, there's this general plan and there's these goals and issues. So it's a way for us to make sure that the elected officials and the city staff remember there's a general plan. It came out through our presentations over the last year that a lot of things have been done, but nobody knew. So the general plan has been implemented, but it was never documented or noted. But we're going to change that with the new plan. So I think that's where a good overview of it. Did I miss something? No.
So on November 30th, we had a subcommittee that was Vice Chair Rocha, Nicole Kennedy, and Anthony Teeters that got together, and we went through the pieces that were pulled out of the previous general plan, as well as any new information, updated numbers, things like that. And they went through each section and kind of edited it. And then once we did that, it was sent out to the subcommittee for review one more time, then sent out to the whole committee for review. So we're just going to go through each section, see if anybody has comments, questions, and go from there and make any edits as needed. On the new calendars everyone has, I believe we're still planning for January 31st to present to the General Plan Committee this draft element. Okay, so I'm going to put that down so I don't drop it because Rob will not be happy. Why is this? Why? Okay, there you go. User error. Okay. So the first section we'll go into is introduction.
And that's this, by the way, right?
Yes, sorry. So
So we should all have one of these.
everyone has a copy of this, and then
If I can just say
Yeah,
just a couple of
absolutely.
things. So as Amber mentioned, hi everybody. Hope you all had a great New Year and holidays, Chelsea. The introduction, and one thing that Tammy, she touched on it, but I wanted to highlight the fact that this document in front of you is not going to be cut and paste into the general plan. The verbiage is, however, the way the formatting of the new general plan is going to work is it's going to be a document that kind of takes topics and fluidly moves between them. So each section that you see here might not flow from one to the next. So each section is kind of like a standalone, and Tammy is going to weave those into appropriate sections of the overall general plan. So as you look at section by section, just kind of keep that in mind that they're standalone. And the first one, the introduction, again, to Tammy's point, the housing element is new, but a lot of the text and a lot of the concepts were taken from the 2015 general plan. So the introduction, however, is largely new, and the subcommittee, when they met, wanted to grab all of the big ideas, the big concepts, and talk about workforce housing. Well, housing in general, but then really drill into the problem and the issue of workforce housing. So you'll notice that some of the verbiage is similar to what you all have already reviewed, and they wanted to be sure to look at, what happens in the introduction section. What happens if we don't address this? What's trending, and what are strategic goals? So the introduction, and I do hope everyone read it, is just kind of setting the table for the rest of the element. And so we'll just kind of let everybody go around the room and call out if you have any changes, any questions, or any insight into the introduction section, and we'll just go through them section by section together.
Yeah, and real quick too, just to jump in here, Chelsea, before we get into conversations, I know the subcommittee touched on a couple things at the meeting that were even eye-opening to me, but the general plan is to the average constituent or resident isn't like this document that's, I don't know that many people that are like, oh my gosh, did you get the general plan and read it all night, 60-some pages. It was great. But it is wildly and used for development, economic development, businesses. So that's just worth noting that this is, a lot of people have asked me so far from these meetings, like, what is that document? Like, what does it tell you? Who wants to read that? But it is very, very important of a document to start guiding, big businesses that come in here and say, okay, we're looking at substantial investment, into this city. What does housing look like? What are their goals? Do they line up with our goals? Do they not? So that it's pretty important of a document, living document in that sense. And the other thing I'll say is that we don't want to get bogged down on detail, because I think that's what we were trying to get to in the subcommittee. It's like hone in on detail, Randy, honing in on detail with when it's general plan's just a general guide, right? The workforce housing policy that I think it alludes to towards the end of this document is really where the meat and potatoes are going to be for us as a committee. So I just wanted to note that just before we start conversations, we don't get too far down in the weeds for that.
All right. So does anybody have any comments, concerns? Yeah. Oh, how did we end up with? Okay.
Luther, would you
Mike's.
slide that
Sorry.
over that way?
I feel like we're
Sorry, we do need to
Less
speak
than
into the mic.
Thank you. I wanted to say, having also served on the Yavapai County Comprehensive Plan Review Board for several years, one of the things that in the introduction, if you go into paragraph 2, last sentence, it's one thing about putting out facts. I worry about that last sentence being a little too opinion. It's more of an opinion than I would like to see in it. I don't know about how you guys feel about it. It's very subjective and kind of semi-even threatening. So can we either reword that or delete that sentence?
Second paragraph, last sentence.
Last paragraph,
A sec.
I'm sorry,
Or in-
the first body, the introduction, or the middle paragraph, last sentence. So it says, there may also be an overall increased cost of services locally. Prescott may experience less diversity in population, and service providers will be disconnected from the community. And I mean, I'll take a lead from all of you, what you think about that. I just thought that was a little bit opinionated and maybe a little bit threatening in a way.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
The last part of it just kind of made me think, well, this is the whole point of the Workforce Housing Committee, is to make them feel more connected to the community. Rather, if they are existing as not being connected to the community, then wouldn't we want them to be? Not as a threatening sentence, but I get where you're coming from, though, the less diversity of the population and service providers.
And everyone gets the concept of why people who don't live here but work here would feel that disconnection. I think that's what the sentence was trying to capture, but we're open to changes. That's what this forum is for.
And I do think we already have not as diverse of a population as we would like. So I think that's pretty important language to retain, in my opinion.
I think it's realistic. It's a realistic overview, so I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
Make it more aspirational.
Sorry, Connie.
And I'm biased because this section was birthed from this whole. I know I kind of pushed and shoved a little bit on having the negative stakes shown also. So for me, it just and I kind of agree with Luther too, in the sense that is this section really is just to paint that picture, Connie. Essentially, to go, if we don't take it serious, if we don't do the work, if we don't figure this out, these are the things that can happen. So in nature, it is meant to be a little drastic. So. I'm okay with the consensus of the committee to keep it.
Okay, that's fine with me. I just wanted to,
Bring it, yeah.
make sure we
Absolutely.
know that we transferred out of facts into opinions. That's all. Thanks.
Anything else on the introduction? I think that's where we're camping right now, right, Amber?
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else on that introduction for anybody? Worth noting, questions? Nicole, you're good with words, so I'm always looking at you.
All right.
Cool.
So now we'll move on to generational and lifestyle diversity.
Okay, got anything on this? This was. I mean, I know it's not the final draft. I know there's just a couple typos here and there, spelling wise.
Yeah, and I will point out that Mike, on the second page there, toward the end of that section, We were looking for some data to include regarding correlation between demand for jobs and age of population. We weren't able to find a good data set to include, so we're going to scratch both of that line as well as how demographic age diversity maintains economic competitiveness. We weren't able to put our finger on that.
What page is that?
It's after the graphs,
Oh.
at the end of the text for
Page
this
4, I believe.
section.
Page 4.
Page 4, yeah. So you'll see those red lines where there's a parenthetical saying Mike is working on this. Well, he tried and tried and tried, and we weren't able to find any sufficient data to include, so we'll be scratching those sections. Other than that, this is pretty much just data that's been updated.
Every committee's good with that? No questions, concerns?
Are the
comments?
graphs clear? Do they make sense?
Oh, yeah. Let me see, the only thing. Yeah, I don't have anything for this. It's like you said, it's data.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think,
Just one question, and I can't remember exactly if we already talked about this.
You've got a lot of microphones.
Two mics.
got options.
When we, on figure 3, page 3, the pie chart there, I thought we had talked about comparing Prescott to the national average or even the state, just to illustrate how different we are as a community, which really points back to that original introduction of how we really aren't as diverse as potentially some other communities out there as a whole.
Almost national and state, maybe, you think?
Perhaps. I guess it would depend how, what it looked like, if it would be redundant or not.
And we'll have some of the data that you showed, the graphs, maybe in other sections that we'll reference, because we have that in, we have a lot of graphs and charts and stuff, so we want to make sure we're not duplicating. So if we have these in other areas, we'll just reference those for other areas that we aren't duplicating, because we do have a lot of them about age groups by population and stuff. We have a lot of graphs, like all these, that hope, and then we may be able to make them look even better.
But specifically regarding the national, how Prescott compares nationally.
Yes.
Is the question. Okay.
Which we know we have an older, I mean, I think the state average was, what, 33? And ours is 60. 37, yeah, I thought it was like 37, and ours is 60. So,
0.5.
huh?
60.5.
Sorry, 0.5. So, I mean, we are a lot older here than generation than other areas.
Maybe just remove city.
So can we note that, Chelsea, to be national and state comparisons then?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like Tammy's saying it might even be out there somewhere in the,
We'll make sure that if it's not in this section, it's included in other sections of the general plan.
awesome, thanks. Do we know, I'm having a hard time finding it now, but I know one thing we've noticed from the initial first draft that we were reviewing that I guess was from the old general plan, there was very old data sets on there. Like, 1990 something says that this whatever. Do we know on average what the most recent data was pulled from, what year on here?
It depends on the data point. So there's some information that we had to go to census, which would be 2020, or the American Community Survey, which would have been around the same time. And there's other things where we were able to pull from data that the city has, which would be obviously 2023.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it depends on what data set you're referring
And that's good enough for me. I
Okay.
mean, 2020 is great.
Yeah, we cut out everything that was older, like there were
Okay.
some 1996 references, and we tried to make everything as current as possible.
Cool.
Ready to move on to the,
Yeah, what's the next section?
Housing trends, variety, affordability, and quality.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, no, I'm way back over here. Housing, yeah, page 4, housing trends. Any comments, questions, concerns there?
again, just data.
A lot of data, yeah.
All right. And if
Anything on charts too. If you guys, I mean, it sounds like we have a plethora of them, but if anything doesn't make sense, I know at the very least when I'm skimming through general plans, charts speak volumes to me.
They break up the
I'm very, just dumbify it for me.
I guess somewhat repetitive to what I said earlier, but again, our growth has been greater than national averages. Do we want to illustrate that or highlight that? I don't know. Oh, did we already show?
Yeah, I think both, if
like
we can.
population-wise?
I think like you're saying figure 4, like
Yeah,
even
figure
showing
4.
what does that mean in the state? Yeah. Yeah, like figure 4 talks about total housing units with percentage change from 2000, 2010, 2020. It would be nice to have, different bars next to it saying national and state. Kind of, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. That way it's not creating another graph.
Hey, Tammy, could you also on figure 1, maybe change that heading from Prescott City to City of Prescott?
Capitalized city.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I thought maybe it said Arizona City and somebody changed it. Oh, okay.
All right, so the next section is the issue of housing affordability in Prescott, and I believe that's page 8.
Wait, we're on page 8?
Under a big blue pie graph. Next page.
Don't have anything here. I'm like thinking, did we do just a solid job on the subcommittee side, or are we missing things here? It's real quiet.
It is very quiet.
You don't want me to talk, right, John? No, I think the most important graph is the age. We're losing our kids. Who's going to take care of us old people when we get really old? So I think whatever emphasis we can put on that, we need to figure out a way to change that. Some of us are, dude. I just had a birthday.
Are we calling certain things out, or just is this kind of an overview of the? Are we adding to it? What are we doing? Okay.
We're in revision mode, yeah.
'Kay.
Like any comments, questions, things that you want to raise or change or whatever, this is the time.
Got it. So when I read the whole thing earlier, it might be a little slightly different version than this, but one of the things that I saw that wasn't like prominently pointed out, and it's highlighted on page 8 for me, was the community opposition. There's a ton of community opposition to just anything in their backyard. It's not isolated to Prescott per se. It's a nationwide thing. So if you start building something in somebody's backyard, they're going to freak out about it. And I think that I've experienced it in every development I've ever done, that your community opposition is pretty big. So I don't know if there's a way that we can put some outreach in here to say, hey, look, this is a necessity. It's in the general plan. We're pushing to that direction. That was just something that I wanted to point out because it starts here and talks about community opposition.
Is it in that section already?
It's right below the pie chart, the last sentence. It's just mentioned very briefly.
Yeah.
But we did
But-
talk about it in the goals
I
with the
think so.
community outreach plan and the.
Yeah, because we
educating the-
we have discussed that until this is all approved, we can't really do the outreach.
Correct, but.
So,
do
but we
plans.
have plans to do that once the city.
Yeah. So yeah, Luther, to catch you up on like goals and stuff, there's a communications plan that this committee is going to be working alongside with communications with the city of Prescott, and a big part of that is like community engagement, education. That's why we paint the stakes. That's why we're doing all this work, is to be like, okay, so when projects show up that really do benefit workforce housing, we're going to have the most amount of folks educated and why that's important to them, you know? I mean, the one thing I will agree with you on is that if there's any chance to add, I know it's sprinkled in here in like a sentence, and I know it comes out in the goals, but it might be worth sinking some more teeth into it of just saying, hey, this general plan is very, I don't know, aggressive, I guess, as to educating the community of, the work of, or the benefits of having these different housing options available. It could be, it does, I know it has to stay general, but to your point, I think you're getting to maybe sinking more teeth into this document to say, can we talk about it a little more instead of maybe that one sentence and then highlight it as a bullet point on the goal?
So
How do you guys feel about
I
that?
agree, and I kind of backing up what you said. If people are reading the introduction first, I know we don't really know how things are going to fall into place, but is that an assumption we can make? Is that the introduction will be first in whatever category? Okay, we've fallen. Then perhaps just a suggestion for placement. If we're talking about strategic goals in that third paragraph, we could add some language in there to say educating community to, build consensus or whatever that
Yeah,
language looks like.
I like that.
Yeah.
Perhaps
sense.
overcome community opposition by further educating the community, something like that.
In the introduction?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's
In that
probably
third
spot.
paragraph where we're talking goals and strategies. Okay. Good. Thank you, Luther.
Where are we at? Page. Sorry, I got my different pages here. So I think we're past page 8. Anything in page 9? Anything on that figure 8 graph? Median sales price. I know we did talk about that in the subcommittee. I like how I note things on here and then I don't write what I was talking about, what I was thinking about. Makes it very challenging. I'm sorry? Yeah, I think once we run through this whole review, then we can open it up for some general comment, public comment. Anything on there? Page 9, nothing there?
That would
Okay.
get us on to formulating affordable workforce housing solutions for the city of Prescott.
Oh, sorry, there is something here. I'm sorry. Page 10, before we jump over there, Amber. Top of the page, that second paragraph talks about City of Prescott's Workforce Housing Committee is currently working on a housing needs assessment for participating stakeholders, as well as several specific goals and objectives related to the general strategies recommended in this section. So to me, it just seems like, yes, that's true. We're working on but I feel like the housing need and the assessment, I almost feel like, can we be more specific to including what we've received as a committee from these stakeholders to paint a picture of, even the number of units. I think we calculated that based on, what was the response to the survey?
The response to the survey was 770, I believe. But when we talked to Dignity Health and we had the fire departments come in and HR, I think it was around 1,200,
Okay.
1,500, somewhere in there.
Yeah, because the percentage of surveys completed, say if we got a 500 and something or 700 unit, the percentage of the total, because we didn't hear from other folks. So to me, it almost painted this 1,200 to 1,500 housing need for workforce housing. So I just think that based on the work that we've done here, we've heard from many different folks, the fire departments, police departments, education, healthcare. I personally would love to see a lot more data of what's happened here at these committee meetings into this document. Whether it's in the previous sections as a data, and it's just part of a data set, just like anything else, and says, hey, Workforce Housing Committee, heard from healthcare providers, and this is the need. Instead of it just being this general I mean, I get that we're trying to stay general, but it just seems like, oh, this committee's working on housing needs. But it's like, well, I think we're past that. I think we kind of know what how dire the housing needs are. So it'd be nice to maybe put that in there. Is that?
You could put it at the middle of page 8, because it talks about Arizona's shortage of 270,000 units. And you could say, based on our recent survey, we're 1,200 units short.
Like at the
in
city or
Prescott.
something?
Yeah, at the city level.
Yeah. Yeah, whether it's there or at this one, it doesn't matter. Hopefully that makes sense to the committee that I'm just trying to be like, well, we've gotten such amazing, like down and dirty, right now data from folks, and it's just worth putting it in here. Like, I mean, I think if this document can even include to any reader an amount of units that, I mean, I wouldn't know. If I'm reading this document, it'd be like, okay, data, graphs, population growth, blah, blah, all this stuff. And we're like, but how bad is it? Then if we would put a number to it, I think that would be very beneficial to, to provide that for somebody
Do we have
reading
any
it.
data in here, how many city employees that don't live in the city?
Oh, yeah,
Well, we do,
Get
right?
that?
from Ryan, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have that data. It's not included right now. I mean, we could. We don't have that for all of our stakeholders, but we do for the city of Prescott as an organization.
I'm assuming they can't live here because they can't afford to live here.
Some choose not to live here, others can't afford it. Yeah, so it depends on how detailed the committee would like us to get with that data, but yes, we do have survey results from our Human Resources Department.
Yeah, because see, that piggybacks, sorry to call it, that piggybacks off of what we're saying is like, here's the stakes, here's what happens if we don't take care of it. And yeah, it puts us in a position to be a little transparent. I think the city needs to be a little transparent to go, this is what the HR department has for data on what housing looks like, and affordability. So anyways, I think that's just, I'd like to open that up for all of us because it will add quite a bit of,
Just maybe a percentage, if it's
Yeah.
50% don't, 50% do, or if it's whatever it is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And sort of, yeah, it's sort of a scare tactic, I get it, but that's kind of what this is about.
Yeah.
We got to wake everybody up.
well, and I don't want it to be a scare tactic. I just want it to be the truth.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's
Reality.
from the horse's mouth, right? I mean, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because this is a 10-year forecast, but
Absolutely.
we can date it,
And
absolutely.
I know it's not all the nurses and all the teachers and all that, but it's just a sort of a reference benchmark.
Okay.
Because people that work in the city, that live in the city, really are vested in the city as a city employee, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. So the more that we have that live in our city, the more vested, the more that work here, it's a good thing. And if we have a very low number, then something we need to look at.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Nicole. You got
That one statistic, and I can't remember exactly the percentage, but the percentage of people that are strongly considering, I think is how it was worded, leaving the community because of the affordability issue, I think is a strong one. It was around 60, 70%, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
I don't recall.
That was based on the survey. I understand, I think, right?
Yeah, there was I can't remember what we called it, but a housing needs survey for just City of Prescott employees.
And do we have any data on retention? Because we've heard stories where we weren't able to retain city employees.
You mean how many have left
Yeah.
because?
Or turn the job down or any of that. Remember that?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there was information from HR in that,
Okay.
either in the presentation that they provided or in the survey results. Yeah, we can pull that.
I think instead of going into the weeds of like the fire department and healthcare and all that, it would make sense to have a number of total units based on the aggregate, right, of all those folks coming to us and saying, okay, we're healthcare and we feel like we need this many units now. We're the fire department and we need this many units now. If we can have that number and then sprinkle in like kind of what the committee's saying right now is essentially taking that City of Prescott HR needs assessment and then putting that in for data. And I'm 100% with being, to Connie's point, this is just a survey.
Yeah.
It was results of a survey done this time frame, but I think it's closer to home to have that than to have the U.S. Census Bureau telling us what the community's like in 2020, So, because those lag. And so for us as a committee, it almost feels like a disservice to be up here in this committee taking all this information in and then just not putting it in here, you know? So are we good with that? The committee's good with adding that in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, guys, didn't we hear like 3,000? Wasn't that our number? Or where did I hear that? Housing units we need.
Oh, no. I think what happened, in fact, to just jog my memory about that, Chelsea, I don't know if you ever had an opportunity to get them, all the units that are online right now. I know you send that to the council that's coming through ComDev, but there are several apartment complexes in the works, you know, that'll be coming that I would consider are kind of close to workforce housing. I mean, they're a little high, but we do have units coming into the city of Prescott that, you know, different applications that have come through community development. And I think that's where you got that, because it was, if I added up all the units, I think it was close to 3,000 units. Well, and also I read that for Prescott Valley. In fact, Sandy probably knows. I think that was one of their stats as well.
You know, as a side note to all this, I've been talking to Report about my property. They're in dire need of workforce housing or just housing. They have, they're bringing on 50 new mid-management people. And they don't have any housing for them. They're going to put a big impact on the city. They're going to hire a lot more people down at that mine, and they're going to need to live somewhere, and we're it. So, just to put a little flame on the fire, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Cool. All right, where does that put us now, Amber? Sorry, I took us back a little bit.
We didn't finish the formula.
Yeah, so we're still on formulating affordable workforce housing solutions for the city of Prescott, which is on starts on page 9.
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, so that's where we just were. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anything on that section? Goes from 9, 10, and half of 11.
Yeah, and this is kind of a little bit of the meat and potatoes as it relates to what this committee is focusing on as solutions. So high-level look at, hey, recognizing all of the data we just looked at, here's kind of where we're going, here's what we're looking at to either incentivize, to update codes, to, you know, here's our strategies, basically.
Let's see. I did like how we included that verbiage of workforce housing policy on there, because I think that's what this whole committee is working towards, is essentially recommending a slew of, you know, strategies for the council to consider for a potential policy for all this stuff.
Just a newbie question. What is a participating stakeholder? Who is that?
Yeah. Participating stakeholder, way I understand it, is essentially like your healthcare, your city of Prescott,
Okay.
education, Yavapai College, essentially folks in the community that feel the issues of work or the lack of workforce housing the most, essentially.
Can we
And
change
they-
it to those who could benefit?
Well, the participating stakeholders are those who actually will come to the table, presumably, with either finance, with other means. Maybe they don't have a way to develop, but maybe they have land and
Got
they'd
it,
like
okay.
to work with the group actively to see something unfold. So not just those who would benefit, but those who would participate in making these things happen.
Got it. Okay.
Can I also ask you a quick question? I know we talked in the past about possibly getting somebody in here to talk about forming a housing authority, the good, the bad, and the ugly about that. Do we still have that anywhere on the agenda? I just saw it in this paragraph that regardless of the type of organization to be formed, Prescott should support the creation of a regional housing organization. I don't think we've established that, whether we should or, I don't think we have enough information yet.
Right, that was going to be the long-term goal of the stakeholder group. So that was identified as a short-term goal when we create the third-party stakeholder organization group. And that was one of the first objectives in creating a regional workforce housing strategic plan, is figuring out what is the best organization for what we're trying to accomplish. Is it a community land trust, or is it the housing authority? So the idea was to get the maximum input, and to see it move forward is to get that regional stakeholder group to participate in that discussion. Because if everybody gets on board, we'll be able to actually move it forward. But that discussion is on the goals and strategies for council to consider. And that would be an action that would take place after the formation of that stakeholder group.
Okay, but we still are going to have somebody come in and speak about what it takes and what it means to form a housing authority. Because,
Yes,
I mean,
in
you're not just
contrast
using-
to the other options that we have.
right.
Yes.
I think that's very important that we
Yeah.
do that, because
Yeah.
there are strings attached to that.
There absolutely are, and we recently had a conversation with the, was it the housing director up in Flagstaff? And we learned a lot about actually many of the pitfalls of a housing authority. So we'll either have a member of the Flagstaff team who does have a housing authority and can speak to the good and the bad, or someone from the state be able to participate in that discussion. Yeah.
All right. Anything on this section?
Yeah, the last paragraph goes into businesses coming into residential areas and the drawbacks and pros to that. It kind of contradicts the auxiliary dwelling units paragraph in the sense that if you have an auxiliary dwelling unit or you allow those, could it, and this is just speculation, could it conflict with like considering that as a multifamily use area? Then it would conflict with the businesses infiltrating a residential area.
Well, the accessory dwelling unit will not trigger the multifamily.
Got it.
Because in our zoning code, there is allowances for accessory dwelling units up to a certain number before it triggers a multifamily, and you just can't without doing a zoning change. But I see them as two separate things in so much as you're not operating a business. The use of the accessory dwelling unit is not to facilitate a business use. It's just for residential. I think the last paragraph speaks more to, well, in zoning, you have buffers, right? You don't put an industrial, use right next to a residential use. There might be an intermediary, what we call industrial transitional or industrial light. So I think that is what this section may be speaking to try to maintain the peace and quiet of neighborhoods. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just needed more clarity on that last paragraph. It was kind of, seemed like it was slack.
And we're not married to anything. If you guys think it doesn't make sense, feel free to nix it. A lot, as we mentioned before, a lot of the verbiage may have come from the old plan. So we were just trying to keep what we thought might be beneficial, but we're happy to nix stuff that isn't.
And this is the entire housing element. So I think for me, this was more of just like, you're sprinkling this to let folks know, residents, constituents know that the city's being intentional to create that buffer space. So it really doesn't, to me, it wasn't something that applies so heavily to what we're doing here as a committee, but it is a housing element, I guess, that we're looking at. Anything else on that section? Before we move on, what's the next one? Urban development issues?
Yep.
Okay, you guys good to move on? Urban development issues, page 11. Had a couple sample projects, I think, that popped up in the subcommittee that were good to highlight. Exit zoning. Are we jumping at effects of zoning laws? Is that the next one on you? I just want to make sure I don't jump ahead. Okay. So urban development issues. Any questions, comments there? You guys good with that?
Is this the section we would talk about, and maybe Chelsea or George can correct me if I'm wrong, but the cottages at Prescott Lakes would be really hard to get approved today just based on fire code restrictions and driveways and setbacks and even just community approval. I mean, I don't know that any of those are sprinkled, and I'm certain that they would need to be today. So there's
Sure.
many different things that come into that one.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. The reason these were highlighted is they're good examples of higher density clustered developments. And, you know, perhaps if they wouldn't be approvable today, the question would be why? And is there codes that we need to look at either incentivizing affordable or workforce housing, or maybe relaxing codes to allow for more products like this? But yeah, that's a good question. And I think with the housing policy that this committee will hopefully turn out this coming year, that can be considered.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, it came out, and I think Chelsea's the one who thought about it during the subcommittee, but these are projects that we tend to forget about that are incorporated into the fabric of what makes housing in the city of Prescott. And we forget that they're there. No one has a problem with them.
Yeah.
They look nice. They have a purpose. They're cluster development. And 100% agree with you, though, that if this would show up to the table for development, it'd be like a bloody bath. But the point, I think, of what we're trying to show folks is that they're possible. We have them already. This is not even a new concept. These are fairly older developments that serve a great purpose for workforce housing, to get the construction costs down, to get price points down, and they can be done well. So I think that was just the point of that.
And they're back. They're coming back.
They're coming back.
We've already got a few in the works.
Do we know if Tanglewood, those were ownership, right? Townhome
Yeah,
ownership?
you own those.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I know we're seeing more of the build-to-rent product that looks very similar, but it's still rent, right? Okay. And anything else on that section before we jump over to zoning? Oh, man, we're just crushing it, I guess. All right. Yeah, we can go over to effects of zoning, page 15. I'm almost thinking if this is the section we might want to include some of that, back to Luther's point earlier about the hurdles of rezoning, communication, or education to the public. I mean, I'm just saying it seems short, but quite honestly, zoning is one of the biggest challenges to any new housing. So, what do you guys think as far as maybe just adding some of that? I mean, I guess we can try. I mean, to add some verbiage there about, and I don't even know how we would do that, Chelsea. How would we be able to stay general?
Very smoothly.
Yeah, I'm just trying. It's hard to get a grasp on what that sounds like. But
No, but it's good. Again, if we think about these as separate standalone
Sprinkled in,
sections,
yeah.
it would be fine to sprinkle in, you know, the community opposition to rezoning, the difficulties, and maybe the strategy of really advising or recommending that developers meet early and often with surrounding neighborhoods to educate and to, you know, just work with the surrounding neighbors on the product. So I think it can be done.
yeah, okay.
Would it be appropriate at all to cite an external study like the one that I sent to the committee a while back about
The NIMBYs.
the research behind, addressing NIMBYism?
And that also may be addressed in the land use section, because there's the land use and growth areas. So that talks about the zoning and growth of the areas and rezonings and infill, be the land use section. So we could always reference back to the land use section too, which would be under great places and neighborhoods, because we want to create great places and neighborhoods, and some of that is diversity of housing. So you have to have the diversity to have a great neighborhood and a great place to be, to have that diversity. So
I think we can go ahead, because Nicole did provide some research, we can go ahead and just add a simple, maybe 2 sentences that'll capture the thought of the committee and reference that. And then, where it goes from there, if it's a land use back reference, that's fine.
Awesome. Anything else for zoning section? No? Okay. What's that puts us at goals and strategies, Amber? Is that where we're
Yep.
at?
So page 16, and Luther, I think these are in your book. If not, I'll send you copies as well. But over the past couple of meetings, we've been working to create long-term and short-term goals for the committee, including mission statement, vision statement, and a definition that can be worked forward from. So I'll make sure you get those if they're not in your book.
I'm sure, I think I saw them already.
So my question might be for Tammy. The short-term goals, 1 to 3 years, obviously the general plan document is a 10-year document. Are you okay? Is it appropriate to have all of these listed out? Should we change anything, or is this fine the way it is? Okay.
With that point though, it's long-term goals go to 10 years? Just to actually be somewhat cohesive with the general plan, because it is in that document.
We could just drop the year reference
Okay,
on the long term.
all right. I mean, it just makes sense if it's all encompassed within the 10 years of that general plan, it might make sense to just leave them out. Any questions, concerns, comments on that? Short term? We've already hammered these out quite a bit, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any.
And they are literally restated from that document
Yeah.
y'all pushed forward
Yep.
at the last meeting, so.
Cool. Long-term goals. Let me see. I don't have anything on that. Yep, it's just essentially the same stuff we've hammered already in here. Okay. How about we go to editor notes for additional changes?
So that might simply be something that is incorporated elsewhere. I don't know how Tammy is going to do it for the general plan.
Okay.
But the last general plan, the 2015, included survey responses and open house responses, which I do know workforce housing was featured at the general plan open house. So it might be good to have some sort of comment in there, and I don't know if it would be appropriate, Tammy, to have it in the housing element specifically, or if you're going to have another section that speaks to, community input overall. But this is just kind of a reminder that, hey, we'd like to make sure that the community's response to workforce housing is incorporated in some way.
Yeah, that's huge.
Cool.
Cool. I think we're good. Yes, thank you. I had it on here. So we can open it up for public comment at this time for this agenda item regarding the general plan housing element. We got a mic here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first, I know we don't have much of an audience here, but I think it would be helpful if the text was put on the screen next time so the audience could see what was being discussed.
I'm sorry, can you state your name too, please, for the.
Howard Mechanic.
Thank you.
So I'd appreciate it if we could see what is being discussed. As far as the, and I have the packet, and on page 41, page 31 of the packet, it talks about the issue of affordability, and it talks about national and local statistics for people living below the poverty level. Certainly, we want to provide housing for people below the poverty level, but I think that gives the wrong impression to readers. that may think that this committee is dealing with that segment of the population. As you know, there is considerable difficulty in getting the public to go for workforce housing. And if you start talking about poverty housing in relation to this committee, I think you're making a mistake. I agree with the suggestion that there should be some of the survey responses, because I think they were almost shocking as far as the percentage of people who work in the city of Prescott who have thought about leaving their jobs. And I think that particular number should be in there. And also the number that talked about how many of those people have a difficulty with their living arrangement. That's almost a shocking number too. So I think those two numbers would be good. And I agree there should be the number as far as an estimate of what the need is. And the committee doesn't know what the need is for workforce housing unit as far as a number. All the committee knows is that there were, I think, 7 nonprofits, 7 major nonprofits responded, and there's a need for over 700 units just for those 7 employers. And I think, we can talk about thousands of employers in the city, but just 7 major ones, I think we need that number in there, because people can look at this document and say, yeah, there's a problem, but if we build 50 units over the next 10 years, we built 6 last year at Taylor Hicks. If we keep doing that, we'll be okay. That nothing in the document here shows that is not a reasonable assumption, that if we build 6 units a year, we'll be okay. So, we need the numbers. And I think that that was all I needed to comment on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mechanic. Appreciate it.
John, can I just
Yeah, go ahead.
something real quick?
Sure.
So one of the things I think that Mr. Mechanic was trying to refer to, and we did discuss it, is, obviously we're looking at for workforce housing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we get into the poverty level below, we're looking at Section 8 housing. And I think we decided that, although you're right, we do need that. Do we attack that subject, because that's a subject all on its own in this workforce housing project? I'm asking. Do we feel like doing that, or do we just stay away from that because, functioning, let me see, how do you have it? 100 renter households earning below the federal poverty level. If they're earning, they're technically working, but you can technically be working and still be Section 8. So I don't know how you want to address that.
And everybody, it's on page 8 of the handout, the first paragraph under the issue of housing affordability in Prescott. And it's a simple strike that sentence if you all feel that that's off base. It's a National Low Income Housing Coalition quote.
Yeah, I would be okay with striking it, just because it does fall outside of what we've discussed so much here at this committee, is to be targeting all our focus and attention and effort to the workforce housing, which I think we have a lot of other data about, the graphs that Nicole brought up earlier, all the other data that we have, HR statistics that, we can probably get from the city. I think we'll cover a lot. So I'm okay with striking. What does the committee think or feel about that?
We've had a lot of discussion about that in here, training ourselves to not use the word affordable and use the word workforce and all that. And as ambassadors that go out in the community, we're the ones that are going to project that message. So, yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I think we need to stay away from that
Language.
altogether.
Is everybody okay with that? We have
So are we suggesting removing the state statistic also because it does cite affordable housing, just to be clear?
Yeah.
It's that next sentence.
Do we know what that definition is of affordable? Is that affordable housing as it relates to HUD, or like, is there any other figure that can accompany that second sentence, or?
We can check the reference. That was taken straight out of the Arizona Department of Housing
Okay.
report for 22. So we can check the definition to see if it marries up and either keep it if it matches kind of workforce housing, or strike it if it doesn't.
Yeah, I think if we're good with that, they can check into seeing what those figures actually are, because I think we've been around 80 or so % of median household income. Is that right, Chelsea? Am I right in saying that? That I think as a committee, we've been hovering around that 80%.
Yeah, we expanded
Median.
it last time from 60 to 120 of the area median
Okay.
income. Yeah.
Okay, so if that falls within what we've agreed to, I think we could just leave it. If it's a kind of a HUD or, low-income housing type of data point, then I think we might just nix it too, just so we stay clear. Nix it?
No, dump it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If you guys remember when we started this committee, there's 3 definitions, there's workforce, low income, and then assistant living. And we don't want to fringe on any of that, I don't think. I think we want to strictly stay with workforce. Because like our new member said, when we have to go out and sell this to the community,
Yeah.
the opposition would be affordable housing or HUD or low income, those types of terminologies. If this is workforce, especially I'm going to be a proponent for workforce ownership, because then they have pride and community and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we're going to hit quite the wall of opposition if we're careful about what we say, and how we say it is if we get a little sloppy with what we say. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Come on, Tony, say something, baby.
And I think we decided when we go out, we all need to be on the same page. And I think right off the bat, we need to define, so we don't get into these talks and people have a misunderstanding. So if we, right off the bat, define the difference between workforce housing and affordable housing, I think we'll be much better position if we do that.
So this low income and affordable makes me nervous.
Yeah. I guess all we were trying to do though, like say for example, of affordable housing, if we look into the statistic from the Arizona Department of Housing and they say, we're deeming this 270 units based off of 60 to 120%, or let's just say 80% of average median income. That falls within what we're shooting for here. So it might be, and then it's not a quotation either, so it might even be that we can change that word to say now attainable housing or workforce housing.
You could just
Easy.
drop the last half of the sentence
Yeah.
and say Arizona alone is nearly 270,000 units short.
Of the current demand or something, and that's it.
John, people are going to
Yeah.
focus on that affordable word.
On the
I'm
word?
telling you,
Yeah. Okay.
That's all you're going to hear.
Yep.
If that statistic matches what the definition is that we're shooting for, because you're right, we don't want to lump in more than what's necessary. I think the point of that statement was just to capture, hey, statewide, this is how short they are, and within that, here's Prescott. But we'll definitely nix the affordable, since you're right, it's not a direct
I think
quote.
for sure we nix affordable, right? That word for sure, I think as a committee we don't want. And if we're able to do that and this statistic falls within what we're shooting for, we should keep it. Because I'd hate to see for someone to read 270,000 units is substantial to paint at least a state picture.
Right.
So now we're just talking a matter of what verbiage or what word we use for it, which I think we can do. So thanks, Randy, appreciate it. Okay. Anything else on that before we are jumping over to item E, 3E?
So do you think by that same token on page 9, that header, we should perhaps remove affordable, just say formulating workforce housing solutions?
Oh, good catch. Yeah, do you guys see that, page 9? Just nix the affordable.
Yeah.
So funny, what a bad word.
Search the whole
It
document.
is. It is.
No, I know,
a
it's like
bad
the most
word for us.
convoluted,
really is.
misunderstood word, yeah.
You got to put a lot of distance between us and that word.
If
Sorry.
you want to fight me on the street, I'd say that. Affordable housing. No, you're right, no, I'm
The
sorry.
citizens, they hear affordable housing and they think
Sure.
low-income people, period. That's
Right.
the first thing that comes.
Yeah.
And as I just indicated to our new member that we're going to, once we say traditional housing, when we go to meet with the homeowners association, they're going to, first thing they're going to be is against it.
Yep.
Because they're going to assume it's all low-income folks that, for whatever reason, somebody doesn't want in their neighborhood. And so
That was a good
it's
catch.
right that we keep as many references to a misconception out of this as we can, because that's what it is. It's
Okay.
a misconception.
Yeah, totally agreed. Thanks, Tony. Maybe it wouldn't hurt us to just do a find feature on this entire document of affordable
Already made
and
it.
just nix it out of there. Yeah.
You know, guys, when I go out and do my little talks, I want a photo of a fireman, a policeman, a nurse, and a teacher behind me when I start talking.
Should we
I
do
mean it.
cardboard cutouts?
Yeah, seriously, seriously.
The face of
Because-
workforce housing.
Visualization, right? And then you can start talking about workforce. That's not affordable behind me. That's workforce. I'm really adamant about this. We
Yeah.
gotta stay away from that.
When in the urban development issues where we're talking about all the communities that are there, we could even add like the Prescott Heights neighborhood or another neighborhood that's just as dense that was built in the 60s or 70s that says, hey, look, this is a continuing thing. We need to continue it.
Where was that at?
Just where we cite the communities, the cottages,
Oh, yeah.
the villages. And
Yeah, are there more examples that you'd like to put in there?
I was just thinking Prescott Heights or that surrounding area where the lots are, less than 0.2 acre. It goes to the ownership thing too. We want to keep this ownership, of the community.
Yeah.
Sure.
That is one note that I actually did have on here about renting versus ownership. I don't think there's anything clearly stated on there that we should welcome both. I think there was a lot about multifamily, which is great. Higher density, infill, infrastructure's easier, water, sewer's there. I mean, those are for sure low-hanging fruit. But I that is something that I wanted to just raise to the committee is that we haven't really picked one or the other. I don't think we've gone down that road to say, yeah, I think all we're going to be able to do here is to rent, or whatever. Exactly. So, but I guess I guess what I'm trying to say is there is an emphasis on multifamily. It hits here and there a little bit about rents versus ownership, but it would be nice to have language in there to just address that. I mean, as a vibrant, diverse city, and as what we're trying to do at the committee level, we would like to see both types. Because in that way, for example, you have a developer that comes in that can pencil out or figure out a development that could work for ownership. Well, now he or she is not really, doesn't have the advantage of a multifamily, right, developer that would come in and say, yeah, I can build apartments. So I think that we would just want to be very careful about setting one or the other higher than the other, if that makes sense.
You're good.
Thank you. Hey, John, could we, or Chelsea, maybe we could put a sentence in there that says something like, we recognize the need for all types of dwellings, because we don't want to pigeonhole. We all decided it was
Sure.
going to take a combination of all those things. So, and then if you want to be specific and, spell out multifamily, single-family, townhomes, whatever you want to put in there.
Yeah. And that is in there too, Connie. So it is in there. Mixed types of housing, construction methods. I think it covers it all. I think it would be literally a sentence or two of just saying that there's not one preferenced over the other.
Right.
Essentially that it's like, here's all the types, but, because there is a big section there in multifamily, and I understand 100% the value of multifamily. Especially when I think in 2022 there was like 0 permits for multifamily, but I just don't want it to be, lopsided. Essentially, just adding that we would like to see both, renting and ownership projects.
Well, guys, could we figure out a way to say it so that, and Connie's talked about this for the employee now, not the general public, now the employee's reading this. He or she sees a stair-step method to ownership through the workforce housing program. In other words, I start out as a renter and then I move here and I move. I mean, I'm just sort of thinking about this. I mean, I'm asking for some input from you guys, but would there,
Yeah.
yeah, you talked about that a long time ago. Remember you wanted to give them classes on how to do their,
I think that would be more so on the workforce housing policy, right?
And
Like
the
that's what we,
goals and the incentive packet.
in the incentive package. Yeah, you're right,
but
Randy.
lay it out so that they can see.
Yeah. The educational piece would essentially be like, this is what we would hope to see in an employee, at the city of Prescott.
Well, and we were talking about the ability of, and I use the hospital as an example of maybe giving a doctor, let's say, $1,000 a month to be saved to go towards the down payment of a house. Or somebody that, could do that. That's how they could incentivize these people for ownership. So they're going to start off renting, I don't know what their income would be, but let's say they were required to withhold a certain amount of money every month to go towards their down payment. It's a financial strategy, but not everybody understands finances. And I think if they're going to participate in these programs, that should be a requirement to have, if they don't understand it, have the option to be able to understand it and allow these stakeholders to be responsible for teaching it, because ultimately at the end of the day, they're the ones going to lose out. You can provide all this stuff, bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So why not make it in some situations a requirement to learn the principles or the strategy of wealth building?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I think we'll hammer that out in the whatever this workforce housing policy or incentive package is for sure. I think for general plan, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're good. Thank you, Connie. Appreciate that. Are we good to move on? 3E?
Right
You still
before
got
we
something
do,
over there?
figure
Oh, yeah.
F6 just needs to better formatting because all the numbers are wonky on my page.
Figure 6.
It's on page 7.
Oh, yeah.
You want
yeah,
the
yeah.
numbers outside the bar?
Yeah.
Or just legible. Somewhere.
I do remember in the subcommittee Chelsea meeting that if there was any, and I don't know where Mike's at on this, but we talked about having not just the permits of what the history of the permits look like for multifamily and single family residential. I think we were trying to pull it for townhomes, single family homes, multifamily, manufactured, like kind of an array, and see how those, because we talk about those in almost every section, all those types of housing. But when you look at the graphs, we only have them for single family and multifamily. So I know he said that maybe with townhomes, I'm sure this is somewhere in the building department. He's like, well, townhomes, duplexes, that kind of stuff, I'm sure I can pull it.
Right.
So I like to see it in here, obviously, because we keep talking about all of them, but we only see graphs for the two types.
Gotcha. And the two types would include them, but you're right, they don't show the subset categories.
Exactly.
Right.
Which we talk about often.
We do.
Yeah, in the verbiage.
Sure, we'll see what we can do.
Awesome, thank you. Anything else from anybody for that? For the housing element? So is the plan at this point to have, if I'm looking at the dates here, we have the presentation to the general plan committee on the 31st. When do we plan on seeing this based on this input as a final?
About the
Do we-
30th.
Perfect.
Just kidding. We're going to try to get it for you. So Mike is out this week, but he's back next week. So hopefully by the end of next week, we can have these updates. I don't see a lot of huge updates
think
here.
so.
The graphs and things might take a little tweaking, but I don't see that being horrible as far as time is concerned. So I'd like to tell you by the end of next week or the beginning of the following week.
Okay.
So that would be
Beginning next week, following
Who's actually
week.
gonna-
So the week of the 15th? is-
the week of the 15th.
What's that?
Is Mike going to represent us at that?
I
He'll
think
do the
so.
speaking?
I think so. Okay.
Oh, at the 31st?
Yeah.
We should talk about that because I don't know that Mike was planning on representing the committee to present the housing element because he wasn't on the subcommittee and he wasn't present today. So I would hate for him to come back and say, "Oh, I've got that." Yeah, that's the price for vacation. Who is available on the 31st? Tony is, great.
At 2 o'clock.
At 2 p.m. here in this room.
I'm pretty sure Nicole is.
Randy, are you trying to voluntold Nicole there?
He's trying.
I can be here also. I mean, it's probably better the more.
Yeah,
The
I-
more-
Yeah,
that's
it's
better, right?
absolutely actually quorum and noticing, but we'd have time. We could post a quorum notice if I think it would be good for everybody to attend.
I can
But
be there too.
can we settle the presenter just so that, you know, they're prepared?
30th, because I think it says the 31st.
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 Yeah, it's the 31st.
And that would be,
It's a Wednesday at 2 p.m.
and that's at the general plan meeting?
Yeah, the general
Essentially,
plan committee meeting. Which will be right here
Okay.
in the configuration, very similar to this.
Okay.
Can we talk about the nuances of the two different meetings that we have coming up, both
Yep.
the council study session and?
Absolutely. I think that's actually on another agenda.
Sorry.
But as far as the nuances for this general plan committee meeting,
Yeah, that's fine.
the presentation, so the general plan committee has received presentations from various departments on various elements that are all going to be combined into the general plan. So the presentation will be much similar to this, less work session type, but I would see us going through each of the sections and just highlighting for them the purpose, the intent, and really what the committee is trying to capture within the housing element. So it's kind of high level. They'll have the text in front of them, and obviously it's going to be their torch to carry from here on out. And I would hope that they would come back if there's significant changes, but as it relates to this committee, it's kind of the handoff. Like, hey, here's the draft of the housing element with all of the things that are important to this committee from the workforce housing standpoint, and here it is to incorporate. So, any other comments, Tammy, on what they can expect or how that meeting will roll out?
Yeah, it's just a summary of the element, and then your guys' goals and strategies, short-term and long-term goals, so they understand why they're in there. Because it can change. I mean, so that you guys will have yours, then when the committee's going to have their input, and then when we have the 60-day comment period, we'll have public comments. Then we'll have our planning and zoning commission and then city council. So things can kind of tweak still, but I mean, I think this is a good draft to get it started and get it implemented into the plan as we're getting the rest of the final sections from the other departments. Then we can start piecing it together, and you will see the draft plan. The idea is the final draft plan will be done in July. So you'll get it for the 60-day comment period, definitely for August and September, that's our kind of goal right now. So, yeah.
I have a couple questions on that, Tammy. So I'm assuming, I don't want to assume, but they won't change our goals as a committee, right? Like they have the liberty to change the overall content of the elements, but not necessarily edit our goals as a committee?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, that's coming from the committee. I'd hope they wouldn't, because you're there to say this is why these goals are there.
Okay.
And they're attainable goals that you see as moving forward. That's why we want to make sure that they're attainable goals. I mean, you don't want to put something in the general plan, or everyone's going to wave this document in front of the council going, hey, there's this goal, but we know it's unachievable. We don't want to put stuff like that in the plan unless it's like something very, very long term. This is a highlight, dream one day if the city comes in a lot of money, which we don't see that happening right now, that, these are possibilities, but these are reasonable, attainable goals that the committee sees.
And further, the council is going to presumably give us some sort of feedback on the 17th as to if they're appropriate or not. So with the council's backing of those goals, I would say that they'd be pretty well not set to change.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when they do make changes or edits, additions, will those be highlighted so that we can easily see? We've already spent so many hours on this. I mean, just so we can better understand what changes are.
Sure.
Is that-
Yes.
Okay.
We can do that.
So is that presentation, this is maybe for Tammy or Chelsea, I don't know, either or, but is that presentation, that general plan committee would already have this housing draft element, right, in advance to probably read through. The presentation's essentially a summary of kind of what that document says, speaks to essentially.
Yeah, a summary, and really there to answer questions. If there's something that the committee is unclear about, it would be great to have someone there representing the committee to speak to any questions, fill in any gaps that the committee, the general plan committee might have.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, it just helps to try to figure out what that.
It should be fairly relaxed. I mean, this will be a work session for the general plan committee.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like they got that document that day and then we're going through every section like we're doing now.
I
It
think
seems
Tammy
exhaustive.
usually sends it a week in
Okay,
advance.
cool. All right.
So Tammy, did you say, I missed part of that, did you say that the committee will be allowed to go through our stuff and strike things? Will they, because I know they have done that in the past where they'll just reduce it down. They'll edit. How are they doing that? Are they doing a lot of that right now?
Not at this time. They haven't started because we're still waiting for the final drafts from the department.
Okay.
So, but starting this next meeting in January, so they'll have the housing, and then they'll have another section that's already done with all the other sections done. So they'll be reviewing one of the themes that we have. So that's already
Because if
completed.
nobody get their feelings hurt, because sometimes when they go in to edit things out, they may do that. But we can always go back, I believe, we can go back and say, no, we really felt strongly about that. Is that the process in this group?
Yeah, and then we may be adding it to other sections, other themes that may make more sense to be either with the land use section or with, open space or something. I mean, just to throw that out there. But it could go with another section under a different theme. So I know it's hard to understand. So what we did was we started looking at other general plans that have been done recently instead of older ones. And so the state statute says this is what you have to have in the plan, but it doesn't tell you how. So some jurisdictions I've looked at, these sections are really short. It's like 2 paragraphs for housing, 2 paragraphs for this, but they have lots of goals and strategies because that's the main beef of the plan is the goals and the strategies, and that's what a lot of people are going to be focusing on. This is a lot of background information, so we're going to have this really big document with all these charts and information and everything. Then we're going to have a consolidated one. That's the more easier, user-friendly with bring out the highlights of each of the sections and each of the themes. So once we have, as these goals start moving forward, we can make sure that you guys are getting copies to see what's going on and that you're included. And we'll come back forward and tell you how this has been separated out or how it's being implemented into the plan. Definitely have you guys involved in that.
Does that help you out, Nicole, on what you were?
Yeah.
Because it seems like they can't change what we're coming up with, but they
No.
can slice and dice it and put it wherever they kind of want.
Yeah, I just thought so we could skim read the changes instead of read the whole document again and try to dissect what was changed.
Sure, we'll
My
try
request.
to summarize where things were moved or something.
In fact, if you get a chance, look at the current one, even though I know we're making an attempt to try to change that, but a little bit, but it's a good outline.
Thanks.
Cool. All right. Can we move on to 3E, Chelsea, and then talk about those meetings as well, like the joint council stuff? I don't know if that's staff announcements or whatnot, but I'll let you take it from here. Or Amber.
Yeah, that would be future agenda items.
Okay.
So we do have the one on the 17th coming up where you guys will sit down with council. We'll probably have it a similar setup to this, so they're not up here. And just have you guys kind of work through the goals, the strategies, how we came up with them, how we built them, and get feedback.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, and those documents that you all approved at the last regular meeting with the mission, the vision, the definition, to Connie's earlier point, are all going to be there for council consideration to get their buy-in. And again, this is a study session, so they won't be voting on anything. It'll just be you sitting down with the council saying, here's what we've come up with. We've studied this for the last 6 months. worked on these goals. What do you think? Get their feedback, and then based on their feedback, you'll either make changes or finalize, and then bring it forward to them at a future voting session where they'll give you the blessing and start moving forward on working on these things.
And, you know, since some of them are going to be coming into this kind of cold, I mean, they know it's an issue, I think somebody should right off the bat do what we talked about and define the difference between workforce and affordable so that we don't get off on a tangent. I think it's very important to do that because it's a big divide.
Yeah, and it would be great if we could settle who's going to be the main presenter for the committee and have Amber and Mike sit with them to get prepped on how the flow will go and make sure that you have the resources that you need from staff to make the presentation to council. I mean, the information is all there, but want to make sure that whoever is the main presenter, or if you want to divvy it up, like, hey, John, you're taking mission, vision, definition. Nicole, you're going to take short-term goals. You know, someone else is going to take long-term goals, et cetera. However the committee would like it to flow, we want to make sure that we're there to support you in that.
Now, is that for the presentation to the council?
That is correct, on the 17th. And that is also a Wednesday, right? Yep.
Oh, for the study session. Oh, sorry. I was thinking of like the formal city council meeting where, is there going to be a formal city council meeting where we present as a workforce housing committee to them?
For the voting, yes. But I would imagine that voting session presentation is going to be a lot shorter because this will be the icebreaker session where you really, again, to Connie's point, you really set the table for them and get them familiar with what the committee has done and how you got to where you are with these finalized documents. And then at the official voting session of the council, it'll be a much smoother presentation and probably shorter, like, hey, we had our joint study session on the 17th. We're coming forward to you now, having made the changes that we discussed. Here it is, yay or nay kind of deal.
Cool.
I know at the last meeting, Mike was here. I don't believe you were here. We were missing some folks, but you had asked, or someone had asked me, maybe it was Mike, to be the one to present. But I really do like the idea that you had said of making it more of a joint effort. So, and
Who's up for presenting, I guess? Like who's ready to go? He's like, put me in, coach. No, I just mean like if we do, I do like that style too, honestly, because I've been at presentations to council from like a committee and it can get, you know, it's nice to get the collaborative, different tone, different feel, and then it gives us the ability to know very well what we're going to present on in bite size. So I guess we start there. If you guys can just let us know if you want to present even just in one small piece, we can go that route.
Well, why don't you
And if
think
you-
about even, I don't know, is it too soon to do that? Because I know there's a couple of sections, a few of you felt pretty strongly about. Do you want to just do that?
I have a question. Whoever presents should be somebody that's been here since the inception of this board and never missed a meeting. That would be her right there.
I feel like the council appointed each of you to these positions. And since I am cycling off as a direct liaison to the committee, it feels more appropriate to have the committee members do it rather than staff, because this is your guys's your output to council when they asked you the question, would you serve on this committee? And this is like, hey, this is what our thought is. So I do think it is appropriate for the committee members to present.
Well, we have 4 senior members, so divide it up.
I was always going to suggest, is there any chance, Chelsea, that you can just, or even Amber, just go back to maybe what those macro topics are? Like one of them clearly would be the goals and strategy. Someone can do that. Mission statement, vision statement, kind of this is what we're about, this is what we want to do is a section all on its own. Maybe there's a section about now the need, who can speak to the need, number of units, that kind of stuff. If maybe we can even just put what those topics are in an email, then that would kind of give us a chance. I would think already from the onset. It's, it could be, Mike would probably could do a section. I can do a section. Nicole, anybody else who wants to, Tony.
Skipped me.
I think, no, you can too. I'm just saying it would be helpful to kind of see what those topics are, how we can break it up, and then we can just kind of assign. It seems like everyone's has the consensus that it would be cool to have each, participate individually as far as instead of just having one single presenter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can do that.
We can hammer that out.
Is it appropriate for Connie as the council liaison to also participate? No? Okay.
Okay.
Partially too, I bet.
She's in a unique position because she'll be a member of council hearing, but she'll also serve as she'll have the ability to answer questions from her peers on council. So that'll be a good thing to have. What we'll do is me, Mike, and Amber will sit down and come up with a flow for the meeting, and we'll divide out all of the things that you need to present, including the communications plan, which is also a big part of it. And we'll get that together, and we'll ask for volunteers.
That'd be great.
And don't forget, the reason each one of you were chosen is because you have a unique connection to this issue. And don't be afraid to elaborate a little bit. I don't know what kind of time we're going to have, but, I think that that's very important because, Nicole, I know your background and John and Randy, but I think that that's important to, get the facts out, but it doesn't hurt for you to throw in a few of your experiences or maybe one, whatever.
Absolutely.
Piggybacking off of her point, and this might not be the right place to put it in here, but I didn't really see anything in here. And that, I guess that's my question is, what about actionable items for the city as a staffing or approval process is concerned? Is there goals as far as shortening timeframes for turnarounds? Time is money, and money creates less affordable housing. From the standpoint that these are things that we can partner with the private sector on, and the neighbors, but is there actionable items for city staff as far as if something comes in and it's, it fits all these criteria, we can make an action on it faster and get it through the community. There's just that, sales tax on top of a house adds, $20,000 to $30,000. Is there a way we can put something like that in there as a suggestion? Or is that not appropriate for this?
Yeah, this is the general plan document. Those specific things would be great incorporated into the workforce housing policy that gets crafted and then put to council consideration.
Okay.
But also, as it relates to the city of Prescott as an organization, we've talked about an incentive packet for developers saying, hey, if you do this to bring in workforce housing, we'll do that. But also on the employee side, the people, the end user that will take advantage of these programs. There's a lot of places where concepts like that will go, but not into the document itself.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, I think we have one more item for a future agenda, the notification, the funding thing. Oh, okay, perfect. Nope.
I'm just talking actionable timeframes.
So we're closing up 3E. We're going to staff
No.
announcements.
Hang on.
Oh, there we go.
3, I think we've been at this for a long time. I don't know how long we've been doing this. We've never heard from a developer that does workforce. I've asked about this many times. I think it's long overdue that we bring those guys in here, and I'm not saying who. I know a couple. I'm sure other guys do here too. And let's hear what they have to say about what we can do for them, potentially, to lure them into our city and what kind of product they can give us. They're the experts, man. We need to hear from those guys so that we can develop plans and strategies and maybe sink our teeth into something that they assign us they need, and let's see if we can get it done. But it all starts with hearing from them.
Short-term goal list.
Okay, when?
When council approves it.
When everyone likes the short-term goals list.
Just bring them in here. They're chomping at the bit to come talk to us.
And we do have their names, and I think we've
Yeah.
already reached out. It'll happen, Randy.
It's not Randy speed.
Yeah, tomorrow.
It won't happen tomorrow, Randy.
We have to post agendas 24 hours ahead of time.
Yeah, I know, I'm gonna age out.
That's funny.
Very different.
Alrighty.
I'm having another birthday.
So staff updates.
It's
What do we got for that?
Do you want to take it?
Okay. Sure. Go for it. Have you read it more?
I have. Do you want me to take it?
Okay.
So staff was made aware just this past Friday of funding availability. And if you look on the screen, and sorry, it's kind of tiny, but you do have it in your packet as well. It's the last slide for the presentation here. We received a notice of funding availability from the state that is right up our alley. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get this in time. This information was just released, and like I said, I just got it Friday. But the funding eligibility, the eligible activities for this $200,000 grant are for conducting a housing needs assessment, identifying housing initiatives to reduce housing barriers and increase production, create an action plan to implement the initiatives. I mean, you guys, it's like everything that's on our goals list, and the state has funding available. So we didn't get this in time to officially put this on an agenda, but in order to apply for the grant, we need to go to council to seek approval to apply. And the application deadline is January 31st. So I'm not going to be able to get it on an agenda for this committee for the official nod. But if you all are cool with it, we're going to take it forward as staff to council at their last meeting in January, because the eligible activities, we've got it all roughed out basically, and I feel like the application will be a no-brainer with the information that we already have from the committee. And the worst that could happen is the state says no, or maybe we get a little bit of funding. But regardless, all of the eligible activities are right what we're planning to do this year anyhow. So just wanted to let you know that that's going to go forward. If council is amenable to allow us to go forward with the application, we'll include you via email on what we create for the application. Again, it needs to be in the state's hands by the 31st. So we'll make sure, as long as council's comfortable with that, we'll make sure that you get a copy of it, and then we'll discuss it at the next agenda, or I'm sorry, the next regular Workforce Housing Committee meeting in February. But looking around the room, I'm getting a lot of head nods. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with that agenda item for council on, I think it's the 23rd. And if all goes well, we'll make the application by the 31st. And I will send out the full packet, the notice of funding availability. We'll email that out after the meeting.
That's awesome.
That's super exciting. I'm like, eh. So does this mean that could be what could fund what our number one goal is, which is to fund a staff person to manage this project?
We will go through I haven't read the entire packet yet from the state, but the eligible activities, it sounds like it's more of a product, not necessarily a position. So an output of having a needs assessment to identify, creating an action plan, educating and communicating of that in the jurisdiction. So like our outreach efforts. And then the local jurisdiction must adopt the housing plan and commit to implementation. So these are things that we need to weigh, but I don't believe the actual position would be, the funds could be used for that.
So do we have any more information as to the award cycle of, like, we applied 31st and then we can see funding? Because I'm almost thinking the best thing we can do is set up number 10 of our short-term goals of a funding account to be able to at least secure that money if we can.
Have to, if you read right there, it says Funding may be used to fund eligible costs associated with housing plan creation. Eligible activities should begin as soon as possible following the execution of the funding agreement. Committed funds must be expended by June
expended, right.
30th. But Chelsea, I read that. I think we can pay a person as a plan manager. So it
We'll
would be
definitely
somebody that would
explore it.
execute the
Yeah.
actual collection of all that, even though we are doing that.
Right.
But it says right there for outreach, so.
Absolutely.
Right there, local jurisdiction must adopt the housing plan and
Yep.
commit to the implementation,
So-
which would require somebody to do that.
Absolutely. And we'll work it into the budget. So obviously with grants, you always ask for the moon, and we can work a position into the budget outline. And, if our cost comes up to, $500K, it's $500K. And if we're awarded the full $200,000, that's great. Who knows if that'll actually happen. But to speak to the timeline, you have to expend the funds by 2026.
Right.
And the anticipated scoring, and this is all in the packet, I'll email, the February 12th is when they'll score all of the applications, and then the award notice will go out at the end of February. So fast turnaround.
Where will that money be preserved?
I'm sorry?
Where will that money be held or preserved? It's not going to be part of the general fund, right?
Correct. It'll be held in a separate grants account. We do this similar to like CDBG funds and other grants that we are awarded.
You'll create one for workforce?
It'll probably be its own grant funding. It'll be tracked separate. I don't think we want to create an operating account budget for this. It'll be its own thing.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Oh, Connie?
As long as we know
Approve
it's
it.
there.
Approve it.
Could use it.
Amber, did we have any other updates?
Forgot my wand.
I think that's it.
So can we talk about this at all, even like general, just because on the 17th, we're going to be very general? Okay, that there may be opportunities for, when we're talking about our goal, it goes hand in hand. That's why I was curious.
Maybe even just expressing that there's an opportunity for funding for one of our goals would be huge. Because that was where we were stuck, is like, yeah, that person would be fantastic. And then finance would be like, okay, good luck with that. Okay. Cool, thank you.
We'll keep you posted via email.
That's awesome. Anything else on staff? No? Cool. All right, well, we hammered everything else, so we will adjourn. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.